Hey Creagears, Robert here, and welcome back to the last video of the custom Salmon Run amiibos for this year. But not the last of the Salmon Run series. We have one more very special video coming up at the end of the month with a project for which we've both been looking forward to all series long. So, do you have any guesses on what it could be with which we want to finish the Salmon Run series with this much of a banger? Leave your guesses down in the comments. But enough blathering about upcoming projects, it's time to start to work on the customs for this video, with a double episode this time. For this video we're making an egg basket and a Salmon Run Worker amiibo. For this we're going to start with the egg basket. For this we start with our custom designed amiibo base. For the base we cut out a wooden square of 4 by 4 centimeters. To go on top of this we cut out another square of 3.5 by 3.5 centimeters out of some cardboard. These we attach to each other with 4 legs cut out of some toothpicks. These are attached to the corners with some hot glue. But for the ones on the bottom we can use a bit more glue because they're like suction cups on the prop in game, so we try to use that to imitate it. Next we make 3 rings out of some metal wire. 2 of these are going to have a diameter of 4 centimeters and 1 of 3.5 centimeters. When these are made we use some of this mesh which we cut out at a 5 centimeter height to create the net in which the eggs are tossed. This we sew together with a normal thin wire to attach the rings and create this shape. Next we go over all of the rings with a thicker stitching wire to make the rope that would hold the net together in game. To continue we make the inlet of the basket. For this we start out with a 4 cm round of 2 mm EVA foam. Although we would suggest, if you want to make this, go for 4.5 cm. But either way we cut this out and find the center and poke a hole into it. Then we cut a line into the middle to make the circle spiral for the inlet. Next we get a 2 cm strip of foam to make the outside of the inlet. This we glue together and add the spiral into. When this is done, we glue in a bamboo skewer to make the center post. Then we grab a coffee stirring stick and cut this to cover the center post and to go over a box onto the side. Then we sand the cut end to make both sides rounded. Then we use a piece of Model Maker expanded foam to make the box on the side, although this could just be easily made out of wood. For this we cut a rectangle and sand down one side to make a chamfer and then glue this to the side and attach the plank. But the inlet has multiple layers, so we make a little spacer out of some extra foam and we cut out another circle. And this we glue to the underside of the inlet. Finally we can glue the net onto the base with some super glue. Then we can cut 3 5cm and 1 10cm stick to make the post around the net. These are attached with hot glue to the base and the top of the net. But the 10cm post also receives an end cap made from 2 heft beads that I had in my collection. For the next step, we're making some golden eggs. For this we start by cutting out the fishes for the eggs from some black craft paper. We decided to make 4, but you can make as much as you want, or as much as would fit in the egg basket. Hey! These fishes we superglue onto the beads, which we painted yellow. When these had a chance to dry, we can cover the fishes with some white for the eyes, a brown for the pupil and a gold paint for the body. To continue the painting, we used some black and white to make the base coats for the rest of the egg basket. Black for the base, poles and the inlet, and white for the netting. Next we brush on silver to the post and the base as well as the inlet. Basically all the parts that were previously painted black. When these had their coats, we use a blue onto the rings of the netting. After the rings, we added a display onto the console, which we added to the front of the basket, as well as a hoist for the flag. Finally, we add a mixture of red and pink for the netting to give it a lot more color. Starting by adding the golden eggs to the inside of the net. For some more detail, I take some yellow electrical tape and make the warning stickers on the sides of the base, being careful to make them as close as possible to each other. Finally, we can use some H dark green fabric to make the Grizzco flag for the basket. This flag we cut out with some scissors and we use a flame to make the edges not fret. Basically, we melt the plastic fabric. Then we trace the logo onto the fabric with a pencil and go over the lines with some white paint. This is very detailed work, so you should take your time with this. Then let's finish the basket by gluing the inlet to the post. And add the flag and the wire to the hoist. And some decorative lighting tubes made from some metal wire, coated with white, then red, and finished off with some yellow spots for the lights. And as a last bit of detailing, we add some zip ties made from a very thin strip of foam spun around the light tubes. And covered in black paint after being applied. Finally, we prepped the base with some ink made from polymer clay and painted orange to match the inkling, which we're now going to make. For the inkling, we're actually going to use a real inkling girl amiibo. Yeah, the sanitized octolings were the last ones for which we did this. As with all the amiibo, we start by boiling the figure for 30 seconds into some boiling water to make the glue loose and to disassemble the figure. As for the worker, we're going to remove the ink tank and the splatter shot. Do be careful when removing the splatter shot, because this one can be molded onto the rest of the figure, so a watchful hand with an X-Acto knife is needed. Also for the shoes, because she's getting some new fresh boots. Some more heat with the water or a heat gun can also help to get the final pieces off. When all is prepped, we can start to make the worker amiibo, starting with the lifesaver. On our first try, we used some more of this Model Maker expanded foam, but this was just not right. So we made one out of some 6mm wood with a 4.5cm circle minus a 3cm hole in the middle. Which edges are chamfered with some sandpaper, and segregations are carved in with a Dremel. A foam box is also added to the side for later attachments, like the flag post. First we tried it with a skewer, but this was just way too thick. So we snatched another toothpick and cut the ends off, and it was a perfect size. This is then glued on, same as with the very thin pieces of stirring sticks, which we add as the supports for the flag. To finish the lifesaver, we grind in some indents onto the sides for the rope to pass through later. Finally, we can start to add some air drying clay to the figure. We had already put a base on for the boots and the underside of the overalls, but more is added to make the front and the back. Maybe you've already seen that the arms have been taken off the figure. This was to make the sculpting process a lot simpler. And also for the clay that we're going to put on the arms later on. Especially since these need a lot of reposing. When the overalls are finished, we can start on the cap. For this part we start by adding a piece of foam for the bill of the cap. Then we can sculpt a rectangle for the body of the cap. Making it flow into the bill, giving it a flat front, adding the little opening in the back, and scoring in some lines for the pieces out of which the cap would have been made. When the clay is drying, we can start to make the weapon of the amiibo. For mine, I chose... Yeah, I might have made it a lot harder on myself by not only picking one of the weapons from the Grizzco series, but also choosing the Grizzco Slusher. Well, for the Slusher series, we can start by making a bit of rectangle with a 10mm hole in the front. Then we add another piece of foam to make the handle out of. And we use this with a knife to make the handle. Make the back of the handle for the Grizzco Slusher. Sand out the feet. And grind a sloped hole with little holes carved into the sides. But the Grizzco Slusher has been cut off, so this needs to also be done to ours. Now we can start to assemble the pieces by gluing the back handle onto some thin wire and gluing it onto the slosher's body. Then we add some differently shaped thick wires to make the tubes of the slosher to finish this piece off. Then the final gear piece are some special packets for the cap. These we quickly made out of some polymer clay. Luckily, it's just some rectangles with squished sides and cut straight. Then we add some black paint to the slosher, antenna and the packets, and a few cuts of white to the figure, lifesaver and the ink on the base. To try to keep the white paint of the face of the figure there. Now that those layers have dried, we can start by painting a mixture of natural green, a tiny bit of black and turquoise for the boots, arms and the cap. Using a larger brush for bigger surfaces and a tiny brush for the edges. And keeping the front of the cap white, but covering the rest of it with this Grizzco green. To give this a chance to dry, we grab the lifesaver and add silver onto the antenna. And once that's on the brush, we also paint some layers onto the packets. Then we can finally add back the orange color onto this amiibo. But the beauty of custom amiibos is that you can use any of the colors used in Salmon Run, or even other colors, it's all your choice. But we start by brushing over some orange onto the ink. And continuing on with the lifesaver, to which we add a little bit of a lower level of ink, because as we all know, the Grizzco slosher slurps up ink. Then a necessary orange layer over the overalls, and it's already starting to look like Salmon Run in here. And the eyebrows to have everything the same color. Next we go over the hair and the other tentacles. before continuing to add a few more layers because the orange doesn't cover that very well. And a little light onto the dried lifesaver with a jewel painted red. Then we mix our orange with some black and red to make a darker orange to paint over the accent spots over the slosher. Then we can follow this up with the ends of the tentacles. And another layer over the slosher. And over the ink. Then we start to work on the details with first the Grizzco logo onto the face of the cap. And we also use the original orange to make the spots on the ends of the tentacles. And some spots of orange onto the cap to resemble the grating on the sides. Then with our finished brush we add the Grizzco logo onto the front of the overalls and the letters onto the sides of the gloves and the boots with white. When those had a chance to dry, we go over the letters again with a natural green. And we brush black onto the straps on the shoulders. To finish the lifesaver, we roll up some orange craft paper and glue this shut. And I chose to do a little bit of the logo onto the flag, as a little extra detail. And then we glue this onto the supports on the antenna. Then finally we finish the tentacles with a few coats of white mixed with a skin color for a bit of an off-white for the undersides. And we hot glue some of the same black grating as used as a net in the basket onto the inside of the lifesaver and also attach a golden egg inside. We drill some holes and use a tiny rope to decorate the lifesaver. Also add some more of these foam zip ties around the flag. Then we can finish off these amiibo by adding a tiny strip of white foam around the cap and the packets. And with a little tiny black clip in the middle. And hot and super gluing the lifesaver onto the back. And at last giving her her weapon. And finally using some metal wire and drilled holes to firmly attach her to her base. And a last gloss coat over the tentacles, gloves, boot and the ink. And with all of that, we can finally announce the last of the Salmon Run Custom Amiibo series of 2020 finished! Hey Creagears, Robert here, and we hope you enjoyed the whole Salmon Run Custom Amiibo series. We've put a lot of time and effort into creating all of these awesome amiibos, so we really hope you could check out the whole series and subscribe to see the very big final episode of the Salmon Run series 2020. Yeah, you're probably right, so that's going to be all from us now. Keep those creative gears turning, and we will see you at the end of the month.